Okay, what's up? Welcome everybody. So just to kick this thing off, just for the context of the call and the conversation, how many of you are excited that kind of there seems to be, some sort of move back to quote unquote normalcy, right? Things are kind of starting to open back up and whatnot. Just type in the chat box. How many of you guys are kind of excited about that, right? A little bit of cabin fever, kind of ready to get out of your houses, kind of get back into society and all those things, right? Get back to your gyms and maybe your favorite restaurants and anywhere that you can go, of course, that's safe and socially responsible, of course, all those things. But there's certainly that feeling of like, oh my God, okay, like, look, it's been a really nice time at home, but it's time for me to kind of get back out in the world, right? So how many of you guys just go like this as well, right? You're just kind of looking forward to that deep breath, quote unquote, of getting back into society. And you should, and that's understandable. And that's right, Julie, here comes the twist. What you've got to be hyper mindful of, hyper aware of, hyper alert of, is not being mesmerized and hypnotized back into the social cycle of convenience and inconsistency and a lack of focus. Super, super important. That as things start to open back up, I promise you, as we get lazy in our desires to stay home, we also start to get lazy in our thinking. And when we get lazy in our thinking, we get back into old lazy habits. And when we get into old lazy habits, we take lazy actions or inaction. And so something that this team and that this company has done so remarkably well is as soon as everything started to go down a couple of months ago, if you notice, there was a deep sense of laser focus and a deep sense of urgency and consistency and nonstop with connecting with people and sharing with people and being more vocal on social media. How many of you felt that intense surge as we kind of started this new season of our lives back in what felt like 16 years ago, right? Which was really, 16 weeks ago roughly? So it's been about a nice body challenge. So we've been in it for about a nice body challenge. Okay, that's the best way to put it. And as we do that, as we start to go back into whatever it is that we're going to go back into and however that's going to look, I don't know. And some of you guys are brand new on the team. This is your very first team training, so welcome. But this is ultra important for you as well. What I know for sure is that it's really easy for us to see what other people are doing and want to participate in what they're doing. It's really easy for us to say, oh, right, the bars are back open, let's go to the bars, right? Like, oh, my friend's having a party this weekend, let's go party. Now, there's nothing wrong with doing any of those things. By all means, go out, have fun, live your lives. However, remember, take a step back, reflect, come present to the reality of how you had committed to yourself and to your families and to your future to stay consistent and to stay focused, and that it was that previous type of habit, right, that may have put you in a place where you're not thrilled about your current financial situation, you're not thrilled about your current social circle, whatever it may be. And it's just really, really easy. How many of you guys just type in the chat box? Just let me know if I'm connecting. If I'm not, I'll change gears, no worries. But how many of you guys know what I'm talking about? It's very, very easy to revert back to our conditioning. It's very, very easy to revert back to what we're accustomed to. It's very, very easy to revert back to previous programming. It's easier to revert back than it is to make progress forward. So my real big message to me, kind of my rallying to all of you, my rallying cry to all of you is to sustain the urgency and the focus and whatnot that everything had started with back in March would be absurd. That's a crazy, ridiculous, unsustainable energy. However, I would really, really encourage all of you to be very, 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 very intentional about how you spend your time and be very, very intentional about how you allow others to influence how you spend your time, and be very, very, very intentional about the boundaries you put around your commitments to whatever you want your business to look like. And whether that's a very part-time effort or a somewhat more full-time effort, I cannot implore you enough to pay very, very, very close attention to the ways in which we can easily get swept into a rhythm that's non-conducive to the song we were trying to write. How many of you have already, just who's willing to be vulnerable, just type in the chat box, how many of you have already kind of felt yourself kind of just like slipping back in, having the same old conversations, like getting ready to go to the same bars, right? Hanging out at the same restaurants, tell the same old jokes, right? Do the same things, right? And it's just very easy to do that. It's very easy to do that. But what I want you to remember is that one of the big reasons you're on this call is because you're looking to be an extraordinary person. And being an extraordinary person means doing that little bit extra, going that little bit extra mile, right? Doing that difference of 1% every single day, which is going to separate you from 98% of the population. But if we don't stay rooted in our values, if we don't stay rooted in what we committed to, it's really easy. And notice my language. You hear how I'm saying we, right? You hear how I'm saying we. I'm not immune to this by any stretch of the imagination. In reality, the reason I'm coaching on it is not just for your learning, but also for my remembrance, right? I'm also reminding myself, Zach, easy to get swept away. Zach, easy to get lazy. Zach, easy to get cabin fever. So if you don't learn how to discipline your distractions, you'll give way to them every day of the week. Distractions will always win. Distractions will always win until you learn how to discipline your distractions. So I really want to invite you all, as things start to, it's different where everybody lives, but just take some time to reflect and get really clear on how did you utilize your time when you didn't have the distraction of people trying to enroll you into doing things that, yeah, they sound fun, but were they really supportive and progressive of the things that you said you wanted to create this year? That's what you got to ask yourself the question of, is in spite of all the things that have happened, how can we stay focused and intentional and consistent? Because consistency is what wins. And the most successful people in the world, here's what I know about the most successful people in the world. The most successful people in the world, no matter what the environment is, they find a way to stay disciplined and consistent in the actions and the habits that are going to progress them towards where they say they want to go, where they see themselves going, who they see themselves becoming. So if it's you, if you're the person who maybe fell off track a little bit, if you're the person that kind of started to feel like you were getting the itch and getting distracted and losing your focus and all that, it's totally cool. It's totally normal. Just come back to center and just make a decision. That can be tonight. It can be right in this moment. You could literally just right now choose just to come back to center, to get to gain clarity again on where you want to go and how you want to progress. And the big question you got to ask yourself then is, am I ready for the rest of the year? This is kind of like a halftime speech because we're almost, we're halfway through basically. For the rest of the year, right? How consistent am I committed to being? How intentional am I willing to become in my process? Am I willing, and here's a big word, am I willing to get obsessed with the possibility of a new outcome in my life? Am I willing to get obsessed? Am I willing to get so obsessed, not that it consumes my life and not that it consumes my persona, but that it consumes my heart? Am I willing to get obsessed, even if my only intention right now is to make $500 a month, because that would allow you to pay your student loan off a little bit faster. It would allow you to pay down your credit card faster. Even if that's all you're looking at right now, which is phenomenal. Are you willing to get obsessed about creating that little gap, that little oxygen mask when it comes to the breathing room of your finances? Are you willing to get obsessed with the idea that, okay, I only have an hour a day to work my business, but I'm going to work that hour of my business like my life depends on it? Because if I don't, that hour is going to get sucked up and soaked in by all the other distractions in the world. Are you willing to get obsessed? Are you willing to be so laser focused that nothing can rattle you? Are you willing to be so intentional with your time that you're unwilling to accept anything less than a certain output in your activity, your action, and your energy? See, the reality is, yes, you can do Isagenix part-time. Absolutely, most people do. And yes, you can do Isagenix full-time once your income's at a certain level. But what you can't do is you can't do Isagenix some of the time. You can't do Isagenix some of the time. And so part-time for you might be 7 to 10 hours a week, and that's fantastic. But that 7 to 10 hours has to be 100% focused. And that 7 to 10 hours can't be missed. Because the way you got to look at it, and just type in the chat, and you can type in the chat box or not. I know most of you are working part-time, right? But I want you to consider what your primary source of income is, okay? And if they said to you, hey, we're willing to pay you an extra $500 a month, but we need you to work an extra 40 hours a month, which unfortunately isn't a stretch, but an extra 10 hours a week, right? An extra 10 hours a week, 40 hours a month. We're going to pay you $500 a month, but you got to come into the office for an extra 10 hours a week, and you got to do a good job. How many of you would work your butt off for those extra 40 hours a month to make that extra $500 to help reduce that student loan debt or your credit card bill, or be able to say yes to more things for your family or whatever it may be? If it was your job, if it was your primary source of income and it was guaranteed an extra $500 a month, we can make no guarantees, but they said, here's the exchange. It's an extra 40 hours a month for an extra $500 of your time, but you got to work, and you got to work hard, and you got to do a good job. Seems reasonable. We hear it in corporate world all the time, right? In job world all the time. We would do it. And so what would happen if you started to treat your business with that context? See, one of the things that kills people's businesses, in fact, it kills our business before we even get liftoff, is we turn on the ignition and then we turn it off. And then we turn on the ignition and then we turn it off. And then we turn on the ignition and then we hit the gas a little bit and then we hit the brake. And then hit the gas a little bit and then we hit the brake. And then we turn off the ignition. And then we pull over on the side of the road. Something must be wrong with the car. Their cars are driving better than my car. Something must be wrong with the car. And then we go, okay, let's try it again. We turn on the ignition, we turn off the ignition, we turn on the ignition, we turn off the ignition. And how many of you, just type in the chat box, how many of you appreciate and have had the experience of the exhaustion of starting and stopping and starting and stopping and starting and stopping? It's just the worst. I know it. I know it intimately. It's frustrating. But right now, what I want you to get is that there are people that are counting on your consistency. There are people who you would love to have join your team, and you know what they're waiting to find out? Are they serious? Are they really going to do this? Can I count on them? Are they showing up every day? They told me to watch this space about 6 weeks ago. I've been watching. I haven't seen anything different. Are they just hypey? Are they just trying to get me into some deal? Or are they really here to play? And the reason they're asking themselves those questions is because they're seriously considering joining a network marketing company. And why are they seriously joining a network marketing company? Because just to be very, very clear, just because society is kind of reopening doesn't mean that people haven't been economically decimated by this process and devastated by this process. And so people are looking at their options. And what we're about to see is a second wave of new people come in after a 90-day run. We're going to see another second wave of people. They're the people that were never going to be the people that slept outside of the Apple store to get the first iPhone. They're like me. The second wave are people like me. I never buy a new piece of technology, never. I always wait to see what's wrong with it based on other friends' experiences. That's how network marketing works in times of great momentum and times of waves. So that first wave of 90, those first 90 days where we saw all this activity, all this excitement, those were the early adopters. But guess what we're about to see? We're going to see another second wave. Now, the fascinating thing about the second wave, type in the chat box, do you think the second wave is smaller or bigger than the first wave? Now, I'm talking industry-wide and company-wide. Okay, it's bigger. It's a compound effect. But now what you have is you have a more intelligent second wave. And what I mean by intelligent is I mean that they've answered all of their questions. They're doing their due diligence. They're analyzing everything. They're paying attention to how the business is being done by multiple companies and multiple associates within the same company. And now they're watching you. How consistent are they being? How certain are they being? How much are they showing up? Even if it's 10 hours a day. Are they obsessed? Are they passionate? Are they excited? Are they doing the work mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually? Are they being products of the product? These are all the questions that the second wave is evaluating. But it's also the question that the first wave of people that you brought in is also evaluating. Do I really want to sink my teeth into this? Do I really want to go all in? Can I really count on the person that brought me into this thing to show me the way? All those people are at the bars, but I'm just going to, just because I see someone on the screen, but Savannah, she's at home. She's reading. She's working. Okay. I see her. I see her. That's where I'm going to bet. I see Mark and Brittany. I see them showing up. Okay. That's where I'm going to bet. But the person who's starting and stopping and starting and stopping and starting and stopping right now, there's nothing wrong with you. You just got to understand that you're demonstrating to people that they can't necessarily count on you yet. So we have 6 months left. Some dust has settled a little bit, a tiny speck has settled where people are kind of coming to the realization of like, oh, wow, this whole global thing just happened. Okay. Now it's time for me to make some decisions in my life. But also maybe it's time for you to make some decisions in your life. Maybe it's time for you to get unapologetic about what you want to do with your life. Maybe it's time for you to stop waiting for permission from me, from any other leader in this company, or from anybody else in your life to just say yes to you, to your legacy, the things you want to create in your life, to your peace of mind. Maybe tonight's the night you make the decision just to get recentered, regrounded, re-intentional, clear on your commitment levels, clear on what you want to be consistent about, clear on what you want the next 6 months to look like in your business. And the cool thing about network marketing, and some of you guys, if you guys know what I'm talking about, some of you that have had this experience with, some of you, we've had coaching calls and we've seen it turn over overnight. How many of you are aware that it can change like that? That your business can look completely radically different with a couple of tiny shifts in 30 to 60 to 90 days, simply because of a change in energy, simply because of a change in consistency, simply because you're willing to eliminate distractions, simply because you're no longer allowing people to take from you, simply because you're no longer being mastered by somebody else's agenda, simply because you're starting to take ownership in a whole new way. Think about that. So as the world starts to kind of quote unquote reopen, and as the world kind of says, I just want to return to normal, pay very close attention to the normal that they want to rush back to and the normal that you were looking to recreate. Because make no mistake, if you weren't looking to recreate your normal, you're not sitting on this call with us right now. If you were satisfied with normal, you're not here. You're not looking for something else in your life. How many of you would agree with that? Type in the chat, there's something or go like this. How many of you would agree with that, right? If normal was working, you're not here. And that doesn't mean that you have to have something be broken to end up here. That's not the point. But what do we know? We know that we're a vehicle for greater. We know that we're a vehicle for more. We know that we're a vehicle for ultimate wellness. We know that we're a vehicle for freedom. We know we're a vehicle for contribution. We know we're a vehicle for a sense of belonging. We know we're a vehicle for a sense of growth. We know that we're a vehicle for a sense of personal and spiritual development. We recognize that. That's why we find our way to something like network marketing, something that's outside of the traditional box of normalcy. So as everyone hurries and scurries back, think about why it was in the first place that you wanted to start to move forward. And I'm not saying don't go spend time with your friends. Please go spend time with your friends. And I'm not saying don't go anywhere and don't have fun. Please go have fun. Please live your life. But what I am saying is remember why you started. And be willing to exercise your no so you can later exercise more of your yes. And sometimes that means saying, hey, no, I can't make it to happy hour tonight. Hey, no, thank you so much for the invitation. I can't come. I'm working on my business. I'm really focused. And sometimes that can be challenging. And sometimes you're going to get pushback from people, and they're not going to understand you. They're not going to understand why. They're not going to understand why. But their understanding your reason why is irrelevant. Your understanding, your deep realization of what's on the other side of 60 to 90 to 6 months, quite frankly, to a year, maybe 2 years of consistency. What's on the other side of that, in spite of any distractions that come, it's worth it. It's worth it. It's worth it. Yeah. Pay very close attention. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you're going to know people, you're going to watch interviews of people who went from nothing to millionaire, multimillionaire. In the next 5 years, you're going to see it happen. And you're going to watch them on interviews. They're going to say, how did you do it? You know what they're going to say? They're going to say the same thing that I've been saying my whole life, that a lot of successful people here say, and I'm on the bottom of the totem pole in terms of the people whose shoulders I've stood on to get where I am today. I have no qualms in acknowledging that. But without a doubt, I'll be able to be on a video one day. Those people that are gonna pop in the next 3, 5, 10 years will be on a video one day. You know what they're gonna say? When everybody else went left, I went right. When they went to the bars, I went to my books. When they went to parties, I went to work on my personal growth. When they left, I went right. When society zigged, I zagged. That's the separator. That's the separator. So anyways, we got about 4 minutes left, but I'll end the call early. I hope there was value in this for all of you this evening. For those of you that are new, we have a little fun tradition where I post in the group, what did you learn? If you learned anything, feel free to drop it in the comments. If you didn't learn anything, please don't write that. It'll hurt my feelings and I'll never recover. Lots of love, everybody. Have a great evening. Thanks for showing up.